What happens when the man who signs your paycheck shows up in a sweaty mascot costume and no one knows it's him? That question hit Carter McMillan hard as he adjusted the heavy foam head of the dragon costume he'd been wearing for the past hour. It was the hottest week of August, and he was seriously regretting the decision to go undercover at his own theme park chain. 5 parks, all spread throughout the state. He bought them 7 years ago from a retiring couple who ran them for decades. Carter had grown the brand, modernized the tech, boosted marketing, but now, customer reviews were slipping, staff turnover was high, and complaints were piling up. People were saying the magic was gone. He didn't want second-hand answers anymore. Each park had its own manager, and a district manager named Sean who was supposed to keep things tight. Carter had never personally met most of the park-level staff. Corporate rarely visited in person, and when they did, it was always scheduled. Easy to clean up before the boss arrived. So he got creative. Carter hired a professional makeup artist, changed his hair, and added a fake tattoo on his forearm. He went by Kyle, a new seasonal hire. He started at the 3rd park Midvale because it had the highest complaint-to-visitor ratio. It was also the smallest, making it easier to blend in. He showed up on a Monday morning, khakis creased, a borrowed car in the lot, and 0 fanfare. No one suspected a thing. "Hey, you the new guy?" a girl with a clipboard had asked, eyeing him up and down. "Yeah. Kyle. First day." "Cool. I'm Zadie. Intern manager. Stick with me today." "You're doing mascot duty first." "Awesome," he said deadpan. By noon, Carter was already drenched in sweat. The dragon suit smelled like socks and fryer grease. He waved at kids, took photos, and got elbowed in the ribs by a toddler who probably hated dragons. But what really stood out wasn't the heat, it was the staff. Most of the teens working there were trying. They were polite, fast on their feet, and clearly overworked. One show cart had only one guy handling a line of 20 people. The ride attendants rotated without breaks. No one complained out loud, but Carter saw it in their faces. "Zadie," he asked during a quick water break, "why is everyone stretched so thin?" "Budget cuts," she said, not even looking up from her clipboard. "We lost 4 people last week, and no one's replaced them yet. I've been asking for help, but Sean keeps saying push through." "Sean's the district manager?" "Yeah. Shows up once a week. Tells us to sell more soda and keep the lines moving." Carter nodded, filing it away. It was around 2 in the afternoon when everything shifted. He was walking toward the staff area to swap out of the costume when he heard raised voices near the maintenance gate. "You think this is a joke? You think I got time to babysit a bunch of clueless kids?" Carter stopped cold. The voice was sharp, angry, and way too loud. He peeked around the corner. A man in a button-up shirt with a park badge that read Supervisor Dean was standing inches from 2 interns, Zadie and a younger boy Carter hadn't seen before. Both were facing the wall, shoulders tense. "Do you even know how to refill the map stands?" "No." "Then what the hell are you doing here?" Dean snapped, jabbing a finger at the boy. "You're wasting my time and making this park look like crap." The boy mumbled something, but Dean cut him off. "Speak up." "Oh, what, you're shy now? This isn't school, kid. You mess up again, I'll make sure you're off the schedule next week. Got it?" Zadie opened her mouth to say something, but Dean shut her down with a glare. Carter froze. He didn't expect this. Not here. Not from a supervisor. And definitely not directed at interns who were clearly trying. His jaw tightened. He wanted to rip the dragon head off and say something, but he hesitated. If he blew his cover now, he might not see the full picture. He needed more. So he backed away slowly, slipped behind the staff lockers, and exhaled hard. This was worse than he thought. He waited until Dean walked off, then approached Zadie and the boy in costume. "You guys okay?" he asked, voice soft. They looked surprised to see him. "Yeah," Zadie said, forcing a smile. "Just a rough day." Carter studied the kid, barely 16 maybe, face red, eyes watery. "I'm Kyle," he said. "If you ever need backup, I got you." Zadie nodded. "Thanks." Carter walked off, heart pounding. He wasn't just here to play dress-up anymore. He had work to do. Carter returned the dragon suit to costuming and changed into a general staff polo. His shift was technically over, but he stayed. Something about the way Dean had spoken to that kid, it wasn't an isolated moment. It felt too practiced. Like it had happened before. He found Zadie again behind the food court, standing near a stack of broken umbrella poles. She was on her phone, typing something furiously. When she saw him approach, she slid it into her back pocket. "Need something?" she asked. "I was wondering if you could show me where the maintenance logs are kept," he said. "Someone told me they're digital now." She squinted. "Why do you care about maintenance?" "I've got an engineering background." "Just curious," he said. "Not trying to overstep." She glanced at him, then shrugged. "Come on." They walked behind the arcade building, through a door marked "Authorized Staff Only," then down a short hallway to a windowless room with a humming desktop and a metal shelf full of labeled binders. "That's the log," she said, pointing to the screen. "You need the proper login, though. Only full-time leads and above have access." "Does Dean?" "Of course. And he's the only one who updates the ride incident reports now. Used to be open access, but they locked it down last year after a complaint went viral." Carter leaned against the doorway. "What kind of complaint?" She hesitated. "Kid got stuck on the Ferris wheel for nearly an hour last summer. Operator walked off to take a call, forgot to rotate the cabin. Parents filmed it." He nodded slowly. "That operator still here?" "Nope. Fired the same day. But instead of fixing the process, they just added more rules. Made it harder for everyone else." She checked her watch. "I've got to run. They're short at the bumper carts. You good?" "Yeah. Thanks." Once she left, Carter lingered a few minutes, watching the screensaver bounce around the monitor. Lockdown systems, cut staffing, and now buried complaints. He wasn't just dealing with bad management, he was dealing with a culture of hiding problems. He headed toward the east side of the park, where the maintenance building overlooked the water rides. The walkway was cracked in places, uneven. One of the trash bins was overflowing. A group of kids in damp shirts walked by, laughing, but one of them slipped slightly on the slick concrete. No one fell, but it was close. He pulled out his phone and took a quick photo. Inside the maintenance shed, he found an older man in grease-stained overalls working on a pump valve. The man looked up, wiping his forehead with a rag. "You one of the new temps?" he asked. "Kyle," Carter said, extending a hand. "You do all the ride upkeep?" "Me and 2 others. One's out sick today. The other's covering the west sector. So guess it's just me for now." "That's a lot for one person." The man let out a dry chuckle. "Tell me about it. Some weeks I'm chasing leaks before I even punch in. Corporate keeps trimming the schedule. They think if the rides spin, things are fine." Carter gestured toward the pump. "That part of the log?" "Supposed to be. But Dean told us last month to stop entering minor stuff. Said it makes the park look unstable." "Unstable how?" "Too many flagged repairs, and the insurance folks start asking questions. So now I keep my own notes." He tapped a worn notebook on the bench. "What's your name, sir?" "Carlos. Been here 12 years, across 3 different owners. You learn to keep your head down." Carter nodded. "That notebook mind if I look?" Carlos studied him for a moment. "You're not gonna cause trouble, are you?" "No, sir. Just trying to learn." Carlos handed it over. Carter flipped through pages of handwritten entries, dates, ride names, components replaced, issues spotted. It was meticulous. Some entries had stars next to them, and one note caught his eye. "Dragon coaster restraint lag reported twice. No action. Flag again if delay exceeds 2 seconds. 2 seconds doesn't sound like much, Carter said. Enough to cause whiplash if the train jerks the wrong way. I've been flagging it for over a month. Dean knows? Carlos looked away. He told me it's not worth shutting down the ride for a fractional delay. Carter closed the notebook. Thanks for your time, Carlos. He walked back out into the park, hands in his pockets, eyes scanning everything differently now. There was a pattern forming. Staff being told to ignore issues. Reports buried. Short staffing that went beyond cost saving. It was reckless. He passed a family arguing with a concessions worker near the fried dough stand. The father was holding a receipt, gesturing toward a bottle of water and a half-eaten funnel cake. We waited 30 minutes, then got the wrong order, the man said. I'm not leaving until someone fixes this. The worker, a girl maybe 17 with tired eyes and a stained apron, looked panicked. I'm sorry, sir, the manager's on break. Carter stepped in before the situation escalated. I'm Kyle, I work here too. Let's sort this out. The father turned to him. Finally. Someone who wants to help. Carter took the receipt, read it, then checked the order list on the screen. Looks like it was rung up wrong. That's on us. I'll get you a new funnel cake and refund the drink. The girl looked at him, surprised. I thought we weren't allowed to do refunds. Sometimes you've got to use common sense, he said. After the family left, the girl exhaled. Thanks. I thought he was going to yell at me. What's your name? Lena. You've been working here long? Only 3 weeks. They trained me for food service, but now I cover 3 booths because we're short. I haven't had a real break all day. Carter checked the time. When's your shift over? Supposed to be 6, but Dean says if the line's long, we stay. No extra pay? She glanced around, lowered her voice. Only if we clock out over 8 hours. But they tell us not to. Carter's fists clenched in his pockets. He looked up and saw Dean walking toward the ride plaza, clipboard in hand, barking something into a handheld radio. Carter followed him. He caught up near the spinning teacups ride, where Dean was inspecting the operator booth. Dean, he said, voice even. Dean turned. What? I need a word. Dean looked him up and down. You're the new guy, right? I've got things to check. This won't take long. Dean sighed. Make it quick. I saw how you spoke to those interns earlier. That kind of treatment's not acceptable. Dean blinked. Excuse me? You threatened to cut a kid's hours because he didn't know how to refill a brochure rack. Dean narrowed his eyes. You don't get how this works, pal. These kids show up late, don't listen, and expect a pat on the back. You've been here 2 days? I've seen enough. And I also know you've told maintenance to hide ride issues from the logs. Dean stepped closer. You're out of line. I don't know who you think you are. Carter pulled out his ID badge from his back pocket. Not the fake one. The real one. Dean's mouth opened slightly. My name is Carter McMillan, he said. I own this park. And the next words out of your mouth better be an explanation, not an excuse. Dean's face turned pale. Hold on, no. You've been endangering guests, intimidating staff, and covering up operational failures. You're done. Leave your badge with security and don't speak to any more employees. Dean started to say something else, but Carter raised a hand. Now. Dean turned and walked off, stiff and silent. Carter stood still for a moment, letting the moment sink in. A few nearby employees had stopped what they were doing. They looked stunned. Some glanced at each other. One guy gave a small nod, like he'd been waiting for that moment all summer. Carter turned to the ride operator. Make sure everyone on this team gets their full breaks today. I'm staying until close. Anyone who needs to talk to me. He walked back toward the food court, already making calls to corporate HR. The park wasn't failing because of market trends or bad luck. It was failing because people like Dean were allowed to run it unchecked. That ended today, Carter stood in the dim break room, leaning against the industrial sink as the humming of the vending machine filled the silence. The fluorescent lights above him flickered slightly, casting a cold glow over the linoleum floor. He had just finished a call with HR and was waiting for a confirmation that Dean had been officially removed from the system. No badge access, no payroll, no contact with staff. He turned as the door creaked open. Sadie stepped in, her expression guarded until she spotted him. "You're really him?" she asked, her voice low. Carter nodded once. "Yeah." She let out a long breath and leaned against the opposite wall. "I thought you were just one of us. A little weird but decent." "I didn't come here to play boss," Carter said. "I came because I didn't trust what I was hearing from corporate channels. Turns out, I was right not to." Sadie folded her arms. "Dean's gone?" "Effective immediately." "About time." There was no celebration in her voice, just fatigue. The kind that didn't go away after a good night's sleep. He watched her for a second. "You look like you've been putting out fires for weeks." She gave a short laugh. "Try months." Carter pushed off the sink. "Come with me. We're going to talk to everyone still on shift." They stepped out into the staff courtyard, where a small group had gathered. Word had spread fast. Lena from concessions stood near the picnic table, arms crossed over her apron. The ride operator from earlier leaned against a post. 2 janitorial staff were off to the side, looking uncertain. No one spoke. Carter cleared his throat. "I know this isn't how you thought your shift would end. I didn't expect it either. But I need to be honest with you." He paused. Nobody looked away. "This park isn't broken because of you. It's broken because people like Dean were allowed to ignore problems, mistreat staff, and hide behind procedure. That ends now." One of the janitors, a tall man with gray at his temples, raised a hand slightly. "What about the hours? We've been logging overtime without pay for weeks. They say it's flex time." Carter turned toward him. "What's your name?" "Marshall." "You'll be paid for every minute you worked, Marshall. Retroactively. I'll have payroll pull the gate logs and cross-reference every shift." The other janitor let out a breath. "Even if we didn't clock it?" "Sometimes we were told to stay off the terminal." Carter nodded. "Still getting paid." Lena looked up. "Are we getting more staff? Or is it just different rules now?" "Both," Carter said. "Hiring freeze is lifted today. But I'm not going to pretend help shows up overnight. I'll be here every day until we stabilize. You'll get real breaks. Real coverage. And if anyone tells you otherwise, you come straight to me." Sadie stepped forward. "You're staying?" Carter didn't hesitate. "I'm not going anywhere." The group slowly began to disperse. No applause. No dramatic turning points. But there was a shift in posture, shoulders eased, steps steadied. It was subtle. But it was real. By 7, Carter was back in the operations office, standing with the park's general manager, a man named Bryce who had barely spoken during the earlier commotion. "You want to explain why I had to fire your supervisor instead of you doing it?" Carter asked, his tone level. Bryce looked down at the desk between them. "I didn't know it was that bad." "That's not a defense. I don't walk the park like I used to," Bryce admitted. "I've been buried in reports, vendor calls, staffing matrices. I trusted Dean to handle the floor. That trust cost us good people," Carter said. "And it nearly cost someone their safety. You're lucky it didn't." Bryce nodded once. "Understood. I'm not firing you, Bryce. Yet. But I'm putting you on a performance plan. You're off the desk starting tomorrow. I want you on your feet, in the park, every hour it's open. You will speak to every team lead, ride tech, and vendor yourself. Daily." Bryce stiffened slightly but didn't argue. "And one more thing," Carter added. "If I find out you knew about the forced overtime or the buried safety flags, we're having a very different conversation." Bryce nodded again, slower. "Got it." Carter left the office and walked toward the boardwalk path near the lake. The sun was dipping low now, casting the water in burnt orange and gold. Carlos was there, kneeling by the pump station, tightening something with a wrench. "Need anything?" Carter asked. Carlos stood, wiping his hands on a rag. "Not used to seeing you twice in the same day. I need something from you, actually." Carlos raised an eyebrow. "I want you to take lead on a 3-week audit of every ride and system. You set the pace, you choose the crew. I'll give you whatever budget you need." Carlos studied him for a beat. "You sure? You've been doing the job already. I'm just asking you to do it with backup now." Carlos nodded. "I'll start tomorrow." Carter turned to leave but paused. "Carlos, your notebook. Keep it. But going forward, I want every single note in the official system too. No more shadows." Carlos gave a short nod. Back on the main walkway, Carter spotted a girl sitting on the edge of the planter near the carousel. She was in uniform, her lanyard tucked in her pocket, water bottle at her side. She looked about 17, hunched slightly, phone face down beside her. "You all right?" Carter asked. She looked up, startled. "Yeah. Just resting a second." "You off the clock?" She hesitated. "Not really. I was supposed to be over at the cotton candy stand, but no one showed for the handoff." Carter checked his watch. "How long you been waiting?" "Almost 20 minutes. He sat on the edge of the planter beside her. "What's your name?" "Riley." "You like working here?" She shrugged. "It's fine. Pays better than the burger place. But some days it's a mess. Like, we're told to clean stuff that's already clean just so it looks busy. And if we try to sit, someone always comes by and says we're not allowed." "Who told you that?" "Dean, mostly. Sometimes the older leads." Carter stood. "Not anymore." Riley looked up, confused. "I'm the owner," he said. "And if you're waiting more than 10 minutes for a handoff, you're allowed to sit. You're not here to be scenery." She blinked, then gave a small nod. Carter headed toward the front gates as the last hour of operation began. Guests filtered out slowly, kids dragging souvenir swords, parents checking watches. The park was still alive. Still beautiful in places. But now, he saw everything with clearer eyes. He passed a bench near the first aid station and noticed a trash can nearby had ants crawling up the side. He snapped a photo and sent it to the facilities group chat he'd created earlier that day. It wasn't about micromanaging. It was about accountability. About being present. As the sky darkened and staff began closing down stations, Carter made one last stop at the employee scheduling kiosk. A girl with box braids and glasses was typing rapidly. "You the scheduler?" he asked. "Yeah," she said. "I'm Justine. I handle the rotations." "You been doing this long?" "Since April. Took over after the last girl quit." "What do you need right now to make your job easier?" Justine paused. "Honestly? One more person trained on scheduling. I've been covering open shifts and doing swaps by hand when the system glitches. And I could use more transparency from management. Half the time I don't know who's quitting until they're already gone." "You'll get both," Carter said. "Pick someone from your team to train. I'll approve the hours. And starting tomorrow, you'll sit in on Bryce's morning meetings. You deserve to be in the loop." She looked stunned for a second, then nodded. "Thanks. Really?" He gave her a short nod and walked outside. The gates were now closed, the music fading, the last guests gone. The park lights buzzed quietly in the dusk. He stood there, just inside the entrance, looking back at the pathways, the rides, the staff cleaning up. It wasn't fixed yet. Not even close. But it was moving. And this time, he wouldn't be watching from a distance. Carter arrived at the Midvale Park the next morning before sunrise. The parking lot was still empty, dew clinging to the windshields of staff cars. He parked in the back and walked the perimeter alone, clipboard in hand, jotting notes on cracked tiles, rust-edged railings, and faded signage that had once seemed charming but now looked neglected. He stepped into the employee entrance just as the first shift leads arrived. Most looked surprised to see him, especially not in disguise this time, but no one said much. The atmosphere was cautious, like employees were waiting to see if yesterday's events would actually change anything. Bryce stood near the operations board, adjusting the ride assignments for the day. He looked up, clearly tired but more alert than Carter had seen him before. "I've got the floor coverage mapped out," Bryce said. "Still understaffed on the west end, but we pushed the carousel opening by an hour to free someone up for the coasters." "Good," Carter said. "Have Justine join us in 10. I want her looped in on every rotation going forward." Bryce nodded. Carter moved through the park as it woke up. Staff trickled in, the usual shuffle of routine starting, garbage bins rolled into place, snack carts uncovered, test runs on rides. But even in the hum of repetition, something felt different. People were watching. Not in fear, just measuring. Seeing if anything they were told yesterday would stick. He caught up with Zadie near the arcade. She was checking the soda fountains, clipboard tucked under one arm. "Morning," he said. She gave a quick nod. "We're short 2 again. One no-show, and another called in sick. I'm covering guest services until noon, then I'll jump to parade prep." "You're running 3 departments?" "Until someone tells me not to." "Don't," Carter said. "You're not covering for missing staff anymore. If it doesn't have coverage, we close it temporarily. I'd rather lose a corner of the park for an hour than burn out the people keeping the rest upright." Zadie looked at him for a moment, then gave a single nod and walked off. No smile. Just movement. But it was enough. Later that morning, Carter called a site-wide meeting in the staff amphitheater. Not everyone could attend. Rides still needed operators, booths needed coverage, but he staggered groups so everyone could rotate through. It took nearly 2 hours to speak with every team. He didn't use a microphone. He stood on the concrete stage, sleeves rolled up, and spoke plainly. "I didn't come here to make a speech," he said. "I came here because I lost sight of what this place was supposed to be. And when I saw one of my managers scream into the face of a teenager who was just trying to learn, I realized how far we'd drifted." He pointed toward the seating area. "Some of you are working double shifts. Some of you haven't had a real break in weeks. Some of you are covering jobs you weren't trained for because no one else showed up. That's not sustainable. That's not leadership. That's neglect." A few heads nodded. Most stayed still, listening. "I'm not promising easy fixes. But I'm promising accountability. From now on, no one gets to hide behind a title. If you're not willing to work for the good of the team, you don't belong here. Period." He paused. Then said, "We're rebuilding this from the ground up. Together. Or not at all." That afternoon, Carter shadowed Carlos and 2 other maintenance staff as they began their ride audit. They moved methodically, checking lap bars, inspecting control panels, logging minor hesitations in lift motors. Carter didn't hover. He asked questions when appropriate, took notes, and carried his own tools when needed. Near the base of the Dragon coaster, Carlos stopped at a metal junction box. "Listen," he said. "You hear that?" Carter tilted his head. A soft, irregular click echoed from within. "Relay delay," Carlos murmured. "Same issue I flagged last month. Still there. And that delay could cause restraint lag," Carter said. Carlos nodded. "Not always. But it's unpredictable. That's the problem." Carter pulled out his phone. "Shut it down. Until it's fixed." Carlos glanced at him. "You sure? Would you let your kid ride it?" Carlos didn't hesitate. "No, then it's offline." By late afternoon, Carter had met with HR reps on site. They were already reviewing timecard discrepancies. He asked for a separate review of all past exit interviews from the last 12 months. "Focus on patterns," he told them. "Look for anything that points to managers dismissing complaints or retaliating against staff. As the sun dipped low, Carter returned to the concession strip. He spotted Lena restocking napkins at the lemonade stand. Her movements were slower than yesterday, but more focused. "You catch a break today?" Carter asked. 15 minutes around 2, she said. "First real one since I started." "How'd it feel?" "Like I could think straight for the rest of the shift." He nodded. "Message coming through loud and clear?" "Mostly," she said. "But there's still someone we're not sure about." Carter raised an eyebrow. "Who?" "Josh. One of the area leads. He's not loud like Dean, but he doesn't do anything. If someone's in trouble, he walks the other way. If we're swamped, he disappears. You seen it firsthand?" "More than once. He left a girl alone at the grill line during a lunch rush. She cried in the freezer." Carter felt a cold weight settle in his chest. "Where is he now?" "Probably in the brake trailer. He hides out there a lot." Carter walked across the service lot behind the arcade, past dumpsters and stacked crates, until he reached the trailer. The door was slightly ajar. He knocked once, then stepped in. Josh was sitting on the couch, scrolling a tablet, earbuds in. He looked up, startled. "Hey," Carter said. "Take the earbuds out." Josh did slowly. "You're an area lead?" "Yeah. For food service." "You leave an employee alone on grill line 2 days ago?" Josh blinked. "I mean, she said she had it." "You watched her cry in the freezer." Josh shifted. "That's not, I didn't see that part. But you left her there." "I had to check inventory." "No, you didn't. You hid in here." Josh opened his mouth, then closed it. "I don't need cowards in leadership," Carter said. "You're terminated immediately. Return your badge and leave the premises." Josh stood slowly, stunned. "You serious? You watched someone drown and chose to look away." "I'm very serious." Carter walked out before Josh could reply. That evening, he ran into Riley near the carousel. She was off duty, sitting on the wall with a soda in hand. "Better day?" Carter asked. She nodded. "I wasn't yelled at once. Kinda weird." "Weird's good sometimes." She looked at him. "You really think this place can change?" "I don't think," he said. "I know." She glanced toward the midway. "Then I'll stick around." Carter walked the park one final time before leaving. The lights were softer now, not glaring. Music played low from the speakers near the gift shop. Staff moved slower, but with more purpose. He paused near the front gate, where Marshall, the janitor, was wiping down a bench. "Long day?" Carter asked. Marshall looked up. "Yeah. But a better one." Carter nodded. "That's the goal." They didn't say anything else. As Carter stepped into the quiet parking lot, he looked back one more time. The park wasn't perfect. There were still gaps to fill, habits to break, systems to rebuild. But trust, real trust, was starting to return. And that was worth every step in a dragon suit.